Now turning to something a little different, our special report tonight on an ancient challenge. You could call it humanity versus nature. This story involves a man versus nature, specifically this man, President Trump, versus some special animals, species that face the risk of extinction. Take the bald eagle, whose population in the U.S. rebounded. After 29 years on the endangered species list, Trump famously tussled with one at a photo shoot.
You gotta go fast. Yeah. Put your hand out of the glove. How's my hair look? Oh, good. No. You don't show the aspirin over there.
His aspirin.
Our focus tonight's not on re-airing that memorable footage. We could do that any night. But eagles are actually back in the news because the Trump administration is moving to undercut a significant environmental law that protects them and other endangered species. Trump's staff trying to make it easier to boot some species off the protected list and give financial concerns greater weight than saving animals, which would give mining companies more power in these fights. This is the corporate agenda the Trump administration is pursuing, often without much scrutiny. While his administration veers from crisis to tweet, this is also an agenda that Trump campaigned on. He said he was more worried about destroying businesses than destroying the environment.
Environmental protection, what they do is a disgrace. Every week they come out with new regulations. They're making it impossible.
Who's going to protect the environment?
We'll be fine with the environment. We can leave a little bit, but you can't destroy businesses.
And while these changes are not immediate, they're coming down the pike. Trump giving less than 60 days for comments from the public on these changes. Congress working to overhaul the law before the midterms. Now, Republicans put a big critic of the EPA in charge of the Natural Resources Committee. His name's Rob Bishop. And he said that if all the laws ever pass, which include hits like the fact that it's a crime to injure a government-owned lamp, it's illegal to sell ham turkey. It has to be called turkey ham, or say alcohol prohibition. There's been many laws out there, but here's what he says is the most inefficient law ever.
The Endangered Species Act, quite frankly, is the most ineffective and inefficient piece of legislation that we have in the history of this country. It doesn't work. It does not meet its goals. It never has, and it never will.
If you look at its goals, the National Wildlife Federation reports more than 100 species have actually been saved under the law. If the whole debate sounds familiar, it is. When lawmakers last decided to deal with this, environmentalists and fact-checkers noted the law benefits many animals and preservation.
It saved from extinction America's symbol. It rescued from hunters Florida's wildness. And it restored to the West Coast ocean majesty. In fact, a report card shows while the peregrine falcon leads the list of 149 species better off today.
So contrast the Republicans today to Teddy Roosevelt, who famously said, "We're heirs to the most glorious heritage a people ever received, and each one must do his part if we wish to show that the nation is worthy of its good fortune." Roosevelt kicked it all off, and President Nixon, another Republican, enacted the Endangered Species Act in 1973.
Each of us all across this great land has a stake in maintaining and improving environmental quality, clean air and clean water, the wise use of our land, the protection of wildlife and natural beauty. These are part of the birthright of every American. To guarantee that birthright, we must act.
It turns out clean water polls pretty well as compared to, say, toxic water. 83% of Americans back the Endangered Species Act today. Now, back in the old days, that kind of support was actually reflected in both parties. Nixon was signing a law to protect animals, which 95% of the Congress voted for. We checked, only 4 members opposed it. Today, environmentalism is as popular among Americans as it roughly was then, if not more. What's changed is that politicians, mostly in the GOP, appear out of step with this green voting bloc. Nixon was following the footsteps of another voting bloc, a blue one, from Lyndon B. Johnson, a Democrat who laid the groundwork with the 1966 law.
Action has been taken to keep our air pure and our water safe, to protect our wildlife. No single Congress in my memory has done so much to keep America as a good and wholesome and beautiful place to live.
This history is not just history, it's the laws that have now saved over 700 animals in America. Some rebounding so much they're not considered endangered anymore. That includes, as often noted, our own national mascot, the bald eagle, plus the humpback whale, which has rebounded to about 20,000 worldwide, or the Florida manatee. So where does this man versus nature story go right now? The polls show Republicans appear out of step with the public on some of these environmental protections, just like Trump was out of step on his border policy. When that was exposed, he partially backed down, but it only occurred because the policy was reported and understood. People have to hear about government action before they can decide what they think about it and whether to oppose it. So I can tell you tonight there are some signs Republicans are hitting turbulence on this important debate. Just this week, they removed an attempt to water down these environmental protections in an unrelated defense bill. Now, there's a long tradition of bipartisan conservation in American politics. It appears that tradition is still popular with the public. The question is whether the public will find out just what this administration is up to right now. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.